Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Iblis Manifestations Podcast. This channel features lengthy off-limits conversations with various different artists and entrepreneurs, predominantly from the underground metal scene. We take deep dives into the topics of life, music, spirituality, and take insight from a variety of thought-provoking perspectives from personalities who you don't often hear from in a mainstream settings. I am your host, Cheyenne, and I was originally born and raised in Iran and currently reside in the UK. I am the frontman and founding member of the black death metal band TRIVAX, who have been active since 2009. The band originally started in the Islamic Republic of Iran, where such type of music is banned as well as a punishable offense. You can check the band's pages for any updates on tour dates as well as new music. I am also a personal trainer and an online fitness coach who specializes in people achieving the best versions of themselves physically and mentally. Having been someone who was once extremely out of shape and overweight, I find it to be my duty to be able to pass on the information and knowledge which I've gained to help others achieve the same transformation. The Iblis Manifestations Podcast also features a variety of solo episodes where I discuss personal experiences and anecdotes in a very candid fashion, covering everything from mental health, spirituality, philosophy, and even paranormal experiences. This is the Iblis Manifestations Podcast. To support it, be sure to subscribe to the channel and visit the link in the descriptions.
It's great talking to you, Cheyenne, really. And best of luck to your endeavors for this podcast. I think it's a great initiative.
You're my favorite person to talk to for interviews and stuff. So I love what you're espousing out here. I love the knowledge and the perspectives that you're curating through this, and I'm just so honored to be a part of it. Thank you.
As I told you, it was one of the most interesting interviews I've ever had, because we talk a lot more things than just music, and I really appreciated that.
I respect you deeply, and it's an honor to be here.
And friends, remember as always, better to die on your feet than to live on your knees. Enjoy the podcast. Sir, welcome to Iblis Manifestations, man. I am super stoked to have you on the podcast. How you doing?
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure, really. It is.
When you got in touch with me a little while ago, and you were obviously telling me about the album that you were doing and everything, and then you said, my name is Brice Leclercq. You might know me from Dissection. I was like, bro, I know exactly who you are. Like, I've watched that video. I have watched the Rebirth live video, I think approximately around 1.5 million times. So, thereabouts anyway. That's what the statistics show. So, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast, man. How you doing? So you've started this kind of new project with From KAOS now, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that's right. I started last year. Decided to create my own band, my own project, and I'm doing everything: vocals, guitars, bass. And Yanni Yaluma from Dark Funeral helped me with the drums, and it's quite melodic, extreme metal. I would call it like that. I don't know how to describe it. I don't really care about style, so it's how it came out. I'm like that, but I don't know. Yeah, I would call it melodic, extreme metal.
Yeah. I think it's, I was listening to it as well, and I was thinking, wow, this stuff is very melodic, but then, it still has that kind of aggressive edge when it comes to it. And and obviously part of that is also credit to the drums as well, of course.
For sure. And, I like contrasts, I like when you have very melodic with very aggressive and different atmospheres, and contrasts works very well in a music environment. I like it. I like to play with that kind of stuff. So that's why my music is like, melodic but fast and aggressive with the vocals, and at the same time with pretty mellow atmospheres and stuff.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed it, especially I enjoyed the song Beyond. That was, you know, that was kind of the one that I was like, oh yeah, you know, those riffs connected with me, because it's like, I don't know if intentional or not, but you know, I could see like resemblances of elements of Iron Maiden, but then in a more kind of like you know, black and death metal fashion, you know, and that to me is, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I love that kind of vibe.
I totally assume to be highly influenced by Iron Maiden and Judas Priest and
okay,
you know, I assume that, and I think most of the Scandinavian black metal bands, you know, at least in Sweden, are influenced by Maiden, and I don't know a band that is not influenced by Maiden or Priest in Sweden, you know. Niflheim and I mean,
well, Niflheim's like,
you know.
Yeah, that's a step further.
That's right.
Yeah, no, but it's great, man, and I really enjoyed the vibe, and I don't know if, you may have been a part of other stuff before, but this is the first time I have actually heard of proper, like, recorded stuff from you that's obviously right. From you as well. Time, yeah. That's the first time. So this is your first album you've ever released?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
What took you so long?
Good question.
Because you've been a musician for many years, right?
Yeah. I never stopped playing, but I had a little daughter I needed to work for and stuff, and then I studied sound engineering when I quit Dissection back in the days. I passed a license in sound engineering in Sweden. I worked a little bit as a sound engineer, mostly live, and then I worked as a manager. Nothing really interesting for me. It didn't, you know, it's not my world. And last year I decided to go back to the music, and at the same time I had the feeling that I needed to have this music out of my system, you know. And I tried to write before last year, but I never could. Nothing interesting never came out. I thought nothing to keep going and keep making music. But last year, it just, I don't know what happened. Just the music kept you know, flowing, but only and almost in a weird way, with almost a spiritual way, you know, like an antenna, and I was like, okay, it's coming in, and I have to light it out. And that's what I did. And I recorded everything, and I did this album. And that's what you heard.
Very interesting. So, I was listening to it, and it definitely had a natural flow to the album, and I quite enjoyed it, you know, and there's obviously different elements and stuff, but it's interesting to me when you say that it's actually the first album that you've sort of put together. So when you release an album of your own, I mean, that comes with so much fucking baggage and different elements and areas. You got to promote it. Then, you know, you have a personal connection to the songs. How have you found that process?
I like it very much. I like that process. And I thought it would be easier than what it was. It's harder than what you expect to be. It's a lot more work than you think it will be. And even with the end result, you are never totally satisfied with everything, you know. Of course, with better stuff, I would have make a better sounding album, but you can buy what you can buy, and you using the stuff you have. So you do what you do with what you have, you know. And I hope that I will have better stuff in the second album, and being able to make it sound a little better. And I wanted to have a little raw, authentic sound on my album. That was something I wanted to have, and almost like a rehearsal in a studio. That was the idea. And that's why sometimes you hear the guitars, you know, still sounding in the background and stuff. It was meant to be. Yeah, I wanted it that way because I think nowadays it's too synthetic, too artificial when it comes to sound in general, in metal in general. Right. I'm not thinking about any bands in particular, but in general, and everybody sounds the same. It's a shame, I think. Back in the days, in the 90s, you know, the bands had one idea in common. It was not to sound like anybody else. Any bands, you can think of any bands back in the days. You can go ahead, Dissection, Necrophobic, Marduk, Darfinal, you can name them all, Mayhem. Everybody tried to sound their own way, Enslaved. Everybody tried to have their own sound and their own production and their own, you know. And nowadays, it's interesting because there is a lot less label involved in the industry, but the industry became more the same when it comes to sound and genre even. It's like everybody is copying each other, being afraid to do something original or not like anybody else, you know. And I found this a little a shame because that's not the way to make the style evolve, you know. It will stay the same thing or even kind of, you know. If you want things to evolve a little bit, you need to have that kind of bands that are not afraid to try new things. That's why
absolutely. No, I totally agree with you on that. And you're very right, because even if you look at the second wave of Norwegian black metal,
yes,
when you mention that to people, in their head, they kind of have like a blueprint sound of, oh, okay, you know, so it's supposed to sound like this, and then the guitars are like that. But when you really think about it, none of those bands sounded like one another. And that's in fact, within those bands, none of their albums sounded like one another. That's Darkthrone probably being the most extreme example, where it's like every album's a different genre altogether.
For sure.
And that's actually what made it really cool. And I think nowadays, like you said it very eloquently, actually, is that I think a lot of bands are trying to fit into a certain type of fucking stereotype because it's easier to market the music, you know. And I always say, sometimes people say to me, oh, TRIVAX sounds more like death metal. I'm like, cool, it's death metal then, you know, like, fuck you, I don't care.
Yeah,
you know,
whatever.
Like,
I don't give a shit either. I mean, call my music whatever you want. It doesn't matter for me. It's not that. That's not what it's important. And I think some bands are trying to force themselves to do something in sounds or music to just fit in a jar, you know. And it's a shame. That's not the way it's supposed to be. You do what the fuck you want. You're free to do what the fuck you want.
100%. That's why.
Even within the scene, within the black metal scene, you will get a lot more respect from Fenris and Enslaved if you show that you're doing your own thing. I guarantee you that.
Yeah, sure thing. Yeah, and it's that, you know, I mean, if you want to release your music as well, I guess it's a nice bonus to have the respect of your peers, but even then, you know, you should do it not because you're trying to impress anyone, but because you just need to let that beast out of your system.
Of course.
That's why with TRIVAX, you know, and obviously you might have already heard some of the stuff we put out before, but this new album that we've just finished recording, you know, and that'll be out next year, that one, we've actually incorporated a lot more Eastern instruments, particularly the first song on the record. You know, it's like the guitars only come in at the end of the song. The rest of it is all Eastern instruments and drums. And I did it all in my own native tongue as well for the vocals, and it just came up something very special. And I can't think of any other band or any other music that sounds like it. And I'm like, right, we're on to something, you know, because it's authentic, you know. And
that's right.
Granted, it takes a few trials and errors. It takes a few albums to maybe really reach that point. You know, maybe you might find that, although I think your first album already sounds great, but maybe your second one might sound even better, even more authentic in a way.
Always to
absolutely. But you know, it's the intent that matters at the end of the day.
For sure. Yeah. And I wanted something authentic as well. I feel that this world is having less and less authentic, you know, integrity and authenticity in general. The scene and in general, I mean, it's crazy how it goes, you know. And I don't like that. So I'm if I do my own thing, I will do it my own way, and I will try to do something authentic and a little raw, kind of, because I like this rebellion. I mean, you shouldn't forget that this movement, right from start, was rebelling against something, and I like when artists are rebelling against something in their sound as well, and trying to fit in a genre is not rebelling against something, is to embracing something, and that doesn't go well with the idea of trying to find your own sound and your own way of expressing yourself. I think it's a lot more respectful if you express yourself in your own way. John did it extremely well with Dissection, and that was his own band, and he expressed himself through this band doing what he did. He did it fucking well, in my opinion, but that's the goal, and that's what I respect the most. And I think most people still respect Dissection nowadays because of that. He was authentic. He was real. He was not bullshitting. It was not just for the cameras. And that's something
Absolutely.
that is a little missing, a little too much nowadays, I feel.
Yeah, totally. I appreciate that mindset. One thing that I obviously noticed is that when you're speaking about Dissection, you're speaking about the band and Jan's work, obviously very you speak of it in very high regards, and you respect
Indeed.
it a lot. Yeah.
Indeed.
Just out of curiosity, when was the first time you actually discovered them?
Oh man. In the 90s. I think when Storm came out. It must have been, around this time. I was already into black metal back then, and Dissection was, of course, one of my favorite bands, if not the favorite one. And that's why I moved to Sweden. I never expected to end up in Dissection, moving up to Sweden to play music, but that's what happened, and I'm grateful that it did, indeed.
Amazing. So you moved to Sweden just to join the band, is that right?
I moved to Sweden. Yeah, I moved to US when I was 19 years old for 1-2 years, and then I decided that I wanted to play music, but on a professional level, and decided to move to Sweden. So I moved to Sweden. I played a little bit with a band called Night Rage, with a guy called Gus G that ended up playing with Ozzy afterward, and Thomas Lindberg, from At the Gates. So I started to meet some people, but it didn't work out. It was not my thing, was not my style. And then I quit the Night Rage, and I saw on the official Dissection website that they were looking for, I think it was a guitar player and a bass player. They already had found Thomas. And and a few weeks before me. It was a couple of weeks before me, and then I applied just out of the blue, and not out of the blue because I loved Dissection, but I didn't think I would even get a reply. That's how that was the mindset back then,
Sure, yeah.
I had a friend that had a camera, and then I bought the tape, and then we recorded Unallowed, I think, live in Wacken. I remember. And
by that point, they were already in D standard in Wacken, right?
I think so, yeah. I think so.
Yeah,
that's
because
right.
I think he switched to D standard before he went to prison. Most people think it was just Rebirth, but it was actually before that.
You're right. It rings a bell now that you're saying that. Yeah. Indeed. It must have been. So I recorded this track, just told a little bit about me, sent it the tape. 1 week later, John called me. Told me, hey, and I was like, whoa, okay. And told me, well, I liked what I saw and what I heard. Okay, cool. And then 1 week later, I went there. We met and talked a lot. That's how he wanted to do back then. So we talked for 4 or 5 hours. He just wanted to know me, wanted to know the members properly and talk. And I think he wanted to be sure that it would work out, and in any ways. I mean, as a religious thing, and in a personal thing, on chemistry, everything, and the background with the music and everything. He was very interested in all that, and it clicked. We got along very well right from the beginning. And then he told me, "Do you want to go and audition and play a few tracks?" Hell yeah! And then 2 weeks later, because he could come out only every 2 weeks back then, we did an audition where I think I had 4 or 5 tracks to work on, and I knew 8 or 9. Because I like to play that stuff. So, and then
was this in 2003? Just to have a reference.
2004.
Oh, okay, 4 already.
3 months prior Rebirth, maybe 4 months before that, something like that.
Wow, so you guys didn't even really have that much time to prepare for that show, then?
What people don't understand is that Rebirth is our first show together.
Of course, yeah. That
and that's. Well, yeah, but that was. I mean,
just in terms of. Sorry to interrupt you, but I mean, just even in terms of rehearsals and stuff, because that's.
No, we didn't. We didn't have that much time to rehearse. No, and
that's impressive.
I mean, rehearsals with Dissection were as impressive as the concerts. And they were fucking. Hey, man, it was. The energy sometimes in the fucking rehearsal place where holy shit. You could feel it. I mean, we auditioned some guitar players, I remember, and they were all like, "Oh man!" And it must have felt very, very strange for those guys to witness that, because I didn't witness. I mean, I played in other bands after, and I didn't have that again. That's for sure. Gotcha. Not that much. Not that energy. Not that natural. Everything was natural in that band. We played like a rock and roll band,
Sure, yeah.
We didn't need to prepare that much because everything was in the hand, and that was the feeling all the time, and that was a great feeling. It's not a usual feeling for in that style,
I'm interested to hear what you're saying about sort of like the, I guess, almost like a very detailed job interview kind of process, that he was kind of putting you guys through, and
that's right.
You say that talks about obviously ideology and things like that, because I'm sure that, he probably felt like he had a bad experience with some of the members just around 97, when everything happened,
because Dissection, splitted prior. I mean, some people don't know that, but Dissection splitted prior.
Before he went to prison. That's right, yeah. I've heard him say that before, yeah.
So he always told me that as well. But...
yeah, I think it's one of those things that, I think that... I don't know. So what was actually your sort of first earliest... so what was your first impression of him? Because you're also from the perspective of you already know the band. You know what this material is like, so it's lesser like a hired gun, if you will, so you actually have a personal connection with these songs all the way from the 90s. So what's your impression like actually connecting with the guy and having those conversations with him initially before even doing the auditions?
Everything went very... very naturally. He was a very humble guy. He was not the kind of guy that would put you in voluntary on pressure, even during the audition. He was very, man, take it easy, man. We just, he would make sure that you don't have the pressure on you. It was not that kind of guy. He would always make sure that, you feel good and we can talk in a normal way, He was always very... I mean, people and fans wonder nowadays how he was as a band member and a band leader. Man, he was great as a band leader. He really was. I have nothing to say about this. He let us do what we wanted to do. I mean, when I recorded Reinkaos, I was alone, man. I could do whatever the fuck I wanted to. And that shows a lot of respect from him towards, you know, the other members, and it was great to feel that back then. It really was. And he did the same with Thomas. I don't think he went to see Thomas before he was actually done, and then he just listened to it and then say, yeah, it's great, cool, okay.
Yeah. So just speaking of Reinkaos then, so you actually did the bass recordings on that album.
Yes, I did.
Strange question, maybe random. You used a 5-string guitar on that, 5-string bass. You did?
I did.
Yeah.
That's why I haven't done any Reinkaos cover yet on my YouTube channel, because I don't have a 5-string anymore. I just have 2 4-strings. So I need to get my hand on a 5-string, and then I will for sure start to do some Reinkaos stuff.
Interesting, very interesting. Yeah, I say that because on Beyond the Horizon, you can hear it on the da-da, 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 da-da. You can hear that the bass is actually 5-string on those
Dark
breaks.
Mother Divine, you can hear it very well.
And that one.
Yeah, very much. So the mindset when I did Reinkaos was to make the album as black and dark as I could. That was the mindset.
Well, I think that everyone accomplished that part.
So
I'm almost laughing because it's kind of like it's like one of the most, I think, fascinating records in, I think, heavy metal history, period, as far as I'm concerned, you know.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah. What was it? So you said that you were basically like on your own, just going through the process of the album?
Yeah, I was with the bass player from Death Stars, actually.
Well, with his brother, right? With Emil, because he produced the album.
He was the engineer in the studio, and his brother. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So I was with him, and then he went very fast. I think in 1.5 days I was done, and I took my time.
Shit! Wow.
Yeah, I took my time. I really did.
Yeah.
And
I guess the bass parts on that particular record are a lot simpler than, let's say, stuff from like Storm and that you would normally play live, right?
Not really, man. You will see. You will see. You don't hear all what I did, but I will show what I remember, at least what I did. But it's a lot more than what you think.
Yeah, sure. I meant more in terms of just the straightforward nature of it. You know, in terms of
John wanted this from start. I mean, he wanted to evolve this way. I mean, he wanted to go this way, and that was the vision he had. And the interesting thing, talking about my audition, that one part of my audition was actually to lay bass on Black Dragon. Because that was the track where he didn't have any idea. The other track had some demo, but it was some MIDI based stuff. You know, and on this track, he told me, man, I don't find anything. Take it as a part of your audition, but lay bass on it. And then I did it alone with Thomas. I went to the studio after we played together in Stockholm, and then only Thomas and I recorded the bass pretty much like you hear it on Reinkaos, on Black Dragon. And I remember saying to Thomas that, man, I have an idea for the bass line, but it's more like AC/DC, like, you know, it doesn't really fucking fit with he told me, yeah, do what you feel like, okay? So I did that, and it was a little bit like, I didn't know how John could react, you know? We didn't talk that much about the way Reinkaos he wanted to be, you know? We did, I mean, it was right at the beginning, and I didn't know much about how he wanted to sound, but I played naturally something very AC/DC-like and very rock and roll-like. And John just loved it. I mean, he told me, man, I love that. I really do. And the way he sings on Reinkaos, you really feel that he's got the groove, man. When he sings, he has John sings with you know, he's very intense, and he has grooves all the time in the way he sings. And on Black Dragon, man, if you hear it, it's amazing.
Invoke the Black Dragon.
That's right.
Okay. Yeah,
you get it. You know what I mean.
Groove. Absolutely, man. Yeah, for sure.
And I mean, groove seems a little funny when you talk about black metal and extreme metal, but you have groove everywhere, man, and it's important. And you shouldn't look down on it. It's not disco, but groove is everywhere, even in the worst Darktron stuff. You got groove. And that's the way.
I don't have anything against it whatsoever. I think it's part of what makes Reinkaos a very special record. I mean, that record for me, I did a whole podcast episode on a friend of mine, Wouter. He invited me to go on his show. It's called Dead Mill Talk, and we spend 1 hour or so just talking about Reinkaos because he thought I would be a good person to go on there. It actually turned out like a good conversation. Yeah, sure.
You seem to know your shit, yeah.
I do. I've been studying this band for many years, and yeah, it's very interesting to me, kind of reflecting on the whole thing. It's super interesting, like hearing all these like little stories and things, and
I mean, if you want to know, Reinkaos was recording in the middle of the winter in Sweden. It was dark and snowy. And I remember coming in the studio with night and coming out with night, and that's, the ambience, you can hear that on Reinkaos, I think. Yeah.
I think so too. So I get the impression that, generally speaking, you reflect very positively on your time in the band, even though I suppose if you look at a calendar, it doesn't look like a very long period of time, but I guess that was a very compressed but also pivotal moment in just the band's legacy, I suppose.
Very intense, very intense in many ways. Very intense in the way that, Rebirth was such a, I don't know, and it was very emotional. It was the energy was special, and it was very something that nobody could forget,
Tell me about Rebirth. I want to know more details about how that show went for you guys.
Yeah, well, first of all, we were booked to play a smaller place that is under or over, I don't remember, arenan in Stockholm called Klubben in Swedish, and it's like 800 people in capacity, something like that. And I remember I was with John, and we were in guitar stores and trying stuff for, preparing for, everything. And we were trying instruments. And then the guy that was in charge of arranging Stockholm called John, and John put he told me, listen, man. And he asked the guy to speak in English, because I didn't speak Swedish back then. Not yet. And then the guy just told us that he was overbooked, and that we were moved to Arenan, and even in Arenan, the tickets were selling so fast that they didn't know if it was not going to be too little, and they never saw that. And John, he was, amazed about all that. It was great time. To be in that band. Those times were awesome, and the energy was great. Rebirth, I remember there were buses coming from Norway, Denmark, Finland, and people coming from Chile, Japan, following us on the tour afterwards as well. And there were really all the magazines back then, all the labels, everybody was there, man. And it was just very special, very special.
Absolutely.
It was I remember coming in alone, because I took the fucking subway to go there.
Right.
And, with a backpack, and like, holy shit. And they were building the stuff, when I arrived there, and it was huge, man. I didn't expect that it was going to be so big. And plus we had one camera each guy all the time. And we had, I think, all in all, 15 cameras going all over the place. And it was our first gig together, man. It was,
That's nerve-wracking. But you guys played so fucking well. That's the part that really impresses me.
We played better afterwards, man. I swear. Oh, yeah.
The tour that followed after that, you mean?
For sure. When we finished the tour, man, we were holy shit. We could play. I remember after that, really, sometimes we played festivals without rehearsing and stuff. It was really like, natural. It was like, I never felt that in any other bands. Never.
Not before, not since, you mean?
not since. It's natural. Everything was just flowing all the time. I mean, Thomas was such a good drummer as well, and was always, very, very steady.
He's a great drummer. Yeah.
He's always very steady, Thomas. I mean, he played with a click even live, and as a bass player, he was great, man. It was John, on the guitar, I could hear, and Thomas it was great to play in that band. Really was. I enjoyed it very much. Very much. It took me 3 years. 3 years it took me to touch my bass again after I quit it. It was the hard way, man. It was not the easy way would have been to stay, man. Simple. If I would have stayed, it would have been easy. I was not the easy way. I don't take the easy way most of the time.
Okay, so do you mind elaborating on that when you say that?
No, I don't. The thing is, we came to a point where we needed to take choices, and important choices, when it came to management, when it came to label or not label, when it came to having the right people with us, when it come to, we were not business like minded people in Dissection. John was not like that. He was a musician, and he was a great guitar player and a great singer, and that he could do very well, but he couldn't take care of the business part of it. And I thought that we needed to have that kind of people around us to take care of that stuff. And that's where we didn't get along. That's why we, and plus it started to be a little difficult financially for me because of the wrong choices. And then I say, man, I'm seeing what's going to happen, and I don't want to be part of it, because I saw that we were going to go right in the wall if we were continuing this path. I mean, with doing on our own, for me back then was a bad idea. And I'm doing on my own right now. I'm not against doing on your own, you know what I mean? But what I mean is, back then, we had all interest to sign with a big label that would push everything a step further even than what we had.
But ultimately, the album came out on Black Horizon Music, and then that's kind of how we did everything.
That's another production thing,
So that's what you're referring to, basically.
Yeah, because he went to shit after a year.
Well, it's difficult, and
it's
obviously
complicated, and I understand John's point of view better now that I'm doing my own band. Looking back at it, I understand his point of view. I understand the fact that there's a lot of fucking horrible people in this business that took advantage of Dissection and of the first 2 albums, and he was sick of that. And I understood that, but at the same time, I told him, yeah, but you can take your revenge now. And you have them by the balls, man. You are the boss now. You decide now. And he didn't agree with that. That's why I decided to quit. But it was a tough choice. It really was. It was not a choice that I liked very much. Not at all.
I'll ask you a question. By all means, feel free to answer this with as much honesty as you wish. But do you regret that choice of leaving the band?
No, I cannot regret it, because I proved to be right. Unfortunately, for everybody, because I wish I was wrong. I really do. For everybody, even if I was not in the band anymore, I wish I was wrong, man.
Okay. Because one thing that I think people have to also consider is also the fact that obviously he couldn't go to America, so that already takes out a big thing. But also, I suppose maybe he had other plans on his mind anyway, that perhaps he wasn't sharing with everyone, maybe it wasn't all just...
I've thought about this as well, quite a lot, I must say. And only one occasion I could have seen something that, but most of the time, not at all. That the strange thing, when I was in Dissection, he was already talking about the next album, and he was talking about writing it all together in the rehearsal place, and he didn't want to do it on alone, and he wanted to work on the next album all together, and so I don't know. It's complex, man. It's very Dissection and John is complex, man. That's the way it is.
Sure, I feel that part. Yeah, for sure. So when you say there was one instance, what is it you're referring to specifically? Was it one instant that you saw?
I could feel that maybe one day he could do that, but I was.
Oh, you mean one day he could take his own? Okay, yeah. All right.
But it was not like that.
But this is the first. Sorry to interrupt you. This is the first out of any of the members, out of anyone who's been around, that I am hearing that perspective, that even there was such a thing.
I cannot talk about what it is because there are
I'm not asking you to. I'm just saying it's the first time.
But at one point, but that's the only time, and I remember it because I was kind of a little shocked because it wasn't unusual from him. Because John was not the kind of guy that was down all the time, and he was the opposite. He was always up and always, alive, very much so. And was not the kind of guy that was depressed or, hurting himself or doing that kind of shit. Not at all. Not at all. The opposite. He was very up and going forward all the time, and didn't have time for bullshit, though. He didn't like to spend time on bullshit. Yeah.
Fair enough. I respect that, And when we're talking here as well, I want to be very clear, regardless of what he did, I want to be as respectful as I can be, or we can be, to, someone who's no longer around and can't defend himself. That's,
for sure.
Like I said, you can sit here and debate and discuss all these things, but, I believe in speaking respectfully of someone who's no longer there.
I do too.
Yes, please.
He deserves a lot of respect for what he was. I think so. I really do. And I was in the band, so I saw that happening very close. And he had a tremendous talent and a natural talent.
Yeah,
that I didn't see anywhere else. And the guy could write a track in one evening easy because it just came out. He
was extremely talented. There's no question about that. I remember listening to that stuff he did when he was a teenager as Thunder. Was it Thunder? That's the name of the band, wasn't it?
And Rabbits. How was it? Rabbit Carrot or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. And it actually, obviously he sounds like a 13, 14-year-old on record, but from a musical perspective, that's still really good. That's
he wrote
very good composition.
He wrote most of Somebody and he was 16.
Yeah, that's insane.
It's insane. I don't know how. I mean, I'm writing music now, but I'm fucking 46, I mean, you know what I mean?
Sure,
you have experience and you've learned things and things work in certain way because you've been playing for a while. But when you're 16, you fucking don't know shit. You haven't played anything, and being able to play to compose that kind of stuff. I mean.
Yeah, but I think part of it is also, if I may say, because you can generally see this when you look at the grand scope of extreme metal, especially, is that when you're 16 years old, you have a lot less societal or other types of structures and restraints. And as far as art is concerned, this is actually something that can very much work to your advantage as a composer, because you're not trying to fit in. What you were saying earlier about being authentic. Sure. I think that authenticity, despite what people might think, I think might actually come easier to some people at a younger age, just because they're not exposed. They don't have to go to work and then get told who they are.
Believe me, John didn't give a shit.
Yeah, I believe that.
He told me. He told me, I spent a lot of time. You got to understand, I spent a lot of time with John because I was taking care of stuff with him all the time, pretty much. That's the way I was young, but that's the way I thought being a member of the band was. I mean, I didn't have to, and he told me, "You don't have to, man." But I did it anyway because I cared back then, and maybe too much because it was not my band, and maybe it was a mistake as well. But
what was your relationship like with the other guys, with Thomas and Seth?
Seth didn't get along so well. Seth and I,
even in the band?
Yeah, especially at the end. I didn't like his behavior in many ways, and I don't want to get too much into that, but that's the way it ended up. Thomas and I were very good friends and still are. I still talk to Thomas today, for sure. And he's recording down, and great for him, and I wish him all the best. And he's a great drummer and a great guy. So I have very, very great memories with Thomas. So
yeah, fair enough. Again, just an important thing to mention, because obviously we talked about Jan quite a bit. So I wanted to see, what was the relationship like with the other two members. And I guess it must have all been very new for everyone as well. Because I know you obviously moved to Sweden more or less to get into that. I know Seth also moved from Italy to Sweden just to do that. These are very big moves.
Eric from Latin helped him though.
Yeah,
you know that they were friends from prior to Dissection, and Eric from Latin let him stay at his place a few months prior to the audition, I think, or weeks, and helped him to audition for Dissection actually.
Cool. That's great. I mean, I guess also, I'm careful of this not becoming like a gossiping thing, but ultimately, it must have been very hard for him too to leave everything behind in Italy just to come and join a new band, and even when you say,
it's not simple.
Yeah,
it's not simple for sure.
Yeah, and I know that because I did that as a very young person.
For sure.
I moved to the UK just before I turned 17, just to have a black metal band, and I know, and
I moved to USA when I was 19. I didn't know anybody there, and I did the same thing when 2 years later when I moved to Sweden. So
what I find is that you don't realize how fucking difficult and complicated it is until quite a while after you've actually done it, I feel.
For sure. It's not easy. Yeah. And when you're young, it's one thing, and when you get older, it's even worse to do that kind of. I mean, it becomes more complicated.
Yeah, for sure.
With family and stuff, but it's not an easy thing to do, for sure. Yeah. But I liked my time in Sweden. Sweden was a great country to. I mean, I had my study in music engineering was there, and of course I could play in Dissection, and I mean Sweden was great, man, for sure. And I'm still in in connection with all that.
So where do you live now?
I live in France now.
In France, is that where you're originally from?
Yep, that's where I originally come from. But,
I mean, based on your surname, I made that assumption, but I wasn't too sure.
Sure. And I moved back to France 10 years ago, something like that. So I lived in Sweden 13 years.
Okay. So that's still quite a long time then. So, just kind of whilst we, put a nice little knot on this kind of chapter, what did you learn from your time in Dissection that you still carry with you today?
It's a lot. I mean, now that I'm doing my own band, everything came back up. And I remember the way John thought to do things, to play, to arrange, and I tried to not replicate, because I didn't want From Chaos to sound like Dissection. That was something I had in mind right from the beginning. I certainly didn't want it to sound like it.
I don't think it does either.
That's a good thing. I mean, there are influences, and I assume them because I still listen to Dissection today, and I assume my influences 100%.
I respect that.
But I didn't want to have the same thing. I respect too much Dissection for copying it. That's
Fair enough. Fair enough,
see.
man. That's great. That's great. So what I'm sort of asking, and you know, I didn't mean to be like extremely vague, you know, but like, what's like a, shall we say, like a life lesson that you took from your time in the band? Because that's a unique position, especially when you look at Dissection in hindsight, the shit that happened with it, the, you know, everything that obviously happened with him before and after the time you guys were together. It's important to note, you know, and you obviously at the time probably would never think that it would be such a way. So 20 years later, how, like, what was it that you took away from that time of your life that you're like, that's the one thing I'll never forget?
The authenticity, man.
Authenticity.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's what defines Dissection best, to my eyes. Authenticity. It's honesty. It's honest. It's not... I see too many bands hiding behind fucking flames and fucking blood and fucking paints and fucking shit all over the place. It's not what matters. That's not what matters. And Dissection showed that. That's
fair
the way
enough.
I see it. Yeah.
I respect that. I respect that, man. So, okay then. So, obviously, now ahead of you is the chapter that you've got with From Chaos. I don't think I asked you this already, but are you planning on taking this project live as well?
That's a good question. I don't know yet.
Okay.
Actually, I have some ideas. Maybe more filming stuff in the jamming environment or in a weird location. I have some ideas, depending on how it goes as well. I'm taking one step at a time. Right now, I'm starting my shit and trying to get people to hear it, and hopefully they like it. At least I do. That's the way I think you should do. Is play the music you'd like to hear. You know.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm playing the music I would like to hear, and if others like it, that's a good thing. Otherwise, yeah, we'll see.
So if you're doing that, let's say hypothetically, if you are, would you then be playing guitars and doing vocals at the same time, or how would you?
No, my instrument is bass, man.
You'd always do bass.
Oh, my bass is number one. It's my shit. It's my thing. That's where I'm at home. I can play other stuff and guitar, and I quite enjoy to do so. Vocals as well is not that as easy as it seemed. That's another thing I thought that would be easier, not what it. Yeah, fuck, man, it's harder, and then you need to have. See, that's when you understand that you need to have some groove. The placements are fucking important, and yeah, everything is a lot harder when you're in the front of it. But I enjoy doing it as well. So I'll keep doing it because I don't think I'm made to play in a band, actually. I'm too stubborn and too fucking... I cannot stand people telling me what to do.
Okay.
I cannot stand that.
Fair enough.
And
you're
that's
preaching to the choir there, yeah.
Yeah, I'm doing my own thing. I mean, it took me 46 years to understand that, but...
Sure.
But,
yeah.
Better sooner than later.
Yeah, that's fair enough, man. Okay, that I feel that part. So, with that said, just coming back to it, obviously, when you say you realize how difficult it is to actually do vocals, but also how difficult it is to play and do vocals to release an album, how did that sort of shift your perspective towards John just as a musician, just solely as a musician speaking?
What do you mean?
So in terms of, like, let's say you actually try it and then you do the vocals and you're like, shit, this is way harder than I thought. And then you remember 20 years ago, that guy was fucking doing vocals and doing the craziest fucking guitar lines at the same time.
For sure.
You know?
But I knew John's talent back then. already. I heard it every day,
Uh-huh.
every time, and every time we would rehearse, I heard his talent, and it
Sure.
was great to witness. I mean, I texted you earlier. I had shitloads of goosebumps when I played in Dissection live, and I guarantee you that it's true. I mean, when you play in that band, even on the stage, there was goosebumps.
I don't doubt it. Yeah, 100%. I've no question. I've had that feeling just listening to the Rebirth record. I actually have listed that multiple times as being like one of my favorite records of all time, because it's the Dissection record that you first of all get to hear the mix of both Storm and Somberlane. But then you also got Mahakali in there, because that was not long after the EP came out for that, because there was the EP of Mahakali and the re-recording of Unhallowed. Yeah. And I'm fucking nerding out here, as you can see.
I see.
This is one band I can do that for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think that his skill was impeccable. I would say that, because obviously, as you've seen, I did a cover of the whole concert, and to me, I would say that as a musician and a frontman, but what do I mean by that is a guitarist who's also the lead vocalist. There are two people who I would say are the best there ever has been. One is Jon, the other is James Hetfield. And for me,
it's funny that you say that. I will tell you something, and you are a nerd a little bit, and I know you will look at it then.
Go ahead.
Watch John's right hand when he plays, and watch James Hetfield's right hand when he plays.
Like that.
Exactly the same way.
Yeah, with the middle finger pushing under. Yeah.
And the movement of the hand was the same, man. I was like, man, you play like James Hetfield. Oh, really? He didn't mean to, but that's the way he played. That was his natural way of playing. But
you could maybe say aesthetically. I mean, in the 90s,
he loved Ride the Lightning. He loved Ride the Lightning. It was by far his favorite Metallica's album, by far. And he wanted to even, at some point, he was talking about covering Creeping Death, even on Reinkaos or something like that. I mean, it's really that much. No shit. Yeah.
Fuck, I would have loved to have heard that.
Oh yeah, no shit. It was
cool.
We cover the Battery, Sacrifice. Sometimes we cover Slayer.
But they used to do the Antichrist back in the day.
Black Magic, I think we tried, or I don't know, but we did a few. And of course, Tormentor is a bit Battery, but
that.
And then we did Freezing Moon. I don't know if you know that. We did Freezing Moon.
Did Freezing Moon.
Oh, we did Freezing Moon with Attila.
Oh shit! I didn't know that. I know you did Elizabeth Bathory together in Bradford in 2004. I didn't know about Freezing Moon.
We did the European tour, and we came to Budapest. Attila was there arranging the gig, and we ended up talking a lot and shit, and we got along. And then John said, "Man, are you interested in doing Freezing Moon?" And we didn't rehearse. I'm telling you, didn't rehearse. Yeah, for sure. Nobody rehearsed anything. We just played. And cool. We did a sound check, I think. And then we did Bathory and Elizabeth Bathory and Freezing Moon in Budapest with Attila. And it was the day he joined Mayhem again.
That's fucking brilliant. Wow. So wait, was this the Rebirth tour still?
Yeah.
Or was this?
Yep.
Okay,
it
so
was the
same
Rebirth
tour.
Yeah.
So just correct me if I'm wrong, but Attila joined you twice on that tour? Because for some reason I've got it in my head that he joined you in Bradford as well.
No, Bradford, I don't recall. He joined us again a few months later when we headlined Inferno in Norway.
Right, okay.
And this gig, I don't know if you heard about this gig. Nobody knows about that either. I'm going to tell you something. First of all, when we did the sound check, it didn't go so well. I mean, Dissection didn't like to be told what to do. Okay? And the guy was kind of bitchy and not very nice, and we didn't like the way he was talking so much. And
Is this the sound guy or who?
no, he was. I think he was the boss of the place. I was making sure that the arranger. I think he was. He was making sure that everything was running, and he was almost the head of the place. I think.
It wasn't Jan Martin, is it? Because he's a very lovely gentleman. I doubt it would have been him.
I doubt it would have been him. I don't know who he was, but I remember that. And though it was a little awkward already under the sound check, and
maybe
then,
like a stage manager or someone, I presume.
Yeah.
More, gotcha.
More
yeah.
And then we did the gig, and we planned to have Attila doing Freezing Moon, and Elizabeth Battery in Oslo. You know.
Sure.
During the encore, the first encore we had, and I mean the place was all over. I mean they were screaming, and it was all over, and great gig. We get off the stage, we go back behind the curtain, and then the stage manager tells John and I tells us no more. You done. And we're like, no, we're not done. We have a guest, man. Give us 2 more songs. We just do 2 more songs and then we stop. No, you're done. John looks at me, man. He was like, with his face, I knew his face. And he was like, should we go up, man? And I was like, well, yeah. And we went up. And then they started to throw people out. And they took our sound guy out of the thing and started to turn the lights on and throwing people out. They turned the PA off. And we continued to play, and Attila continued to sing. We didn't give a shit. And our manager, though, was not that happy because we almost got, very high fees for not respecting the contract and blah, blah, blah. But nevertheless, it was a great memory.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
That's rock and roll. That's rebellion. That's what I was talking about earlier. That's what it's supposed to be.
Sure. I mean, that would be a fucking nightmare if every band did that, but I appreciate the essence of the moment.
Yeah, for sure. But sometimes you need that kind of rebellious moment. I mean, since when playing fucking extreme metal is safe,
Well, yeah, we can go down there for sure.
You know what I mean? I mean, the extreme metal people are made of people with strong opinions, with stubborn and sometimes a little violent, and shit happens. But when you see the things that happens in the world, it's nothing compared to that. I mean, they're a lot fucking crazier in doing all that shit in this shitty world than what we do. I mean, we don't have any lesson to take from anybody. But I find it more, put in a better way, I find it more normal to sometimes have a little violence and than to always shut the fuck up and think we are hippies,
Agreed.
We are not. We are not hippies.
No,
it's normal not to like everybody. It's normal not to get along with everybody. It's normal to fight sometimes. That's life. That's the way things work. Forces go against each other. That's individuals as well. It happens. That's life.
For sure. Well, that's that's very much of my own school of thinking. I think that and you're right. I think a lot of people who do turn to extreme metal aren't really that violent. Actually, I think it's more just that they need an outlet to sort of pour any kind of insecurities or negative feelings and things into. So it's kind of like you don't want to go out and actually kill someone. So instead you pour the same energy and same intent into music and create empowering, intoxicating music. I think that's, and you know what? Without sounding like edgy about it or anything, I don't think it's edgy at all. I actually think that's a very positive thing as far as my style of thinking is concerned. I'm a very, I appreciate that a lot of maybe even the fan base associated with this listening right now might be like, fucking kill everyone. I'm not like that. I actually think it's
that's not what I say.
Yeah. I think it's good to get the shit out of your system. Yeah, I know.
Exactly.
It's not.
What I'm saying is that I find most of nowadays extreme metal bands too safe, in the sense that not authentic enough, not too afraid to shock or say something that somebody may not like. Who gives a shit? Yeah, you will do things that some people will not like. I do music that I know some people will hate and some people will love, and that's the way it is. We are not here all loving each other, it doesn't work that way.
Well, that's it. And then if you happen to kind of meet people along the way that you agree with, who are of the same school of thought, that's always a really, really nice bonus. But the fact that you got to do it comes out of a natural place anyway, But just regarding the violence thing, let's not kid ourselves. You go to like a black metal show now, or even like 20 years ago, how many of those people are actually capable of fighting? How many of those people are actually disciplined, who've got sheer willpower, that are able to actually accomplish things? Many of them don't possess that quality. Some certainly do, and I'm much more drawn towards those kind of people in general, inside and outside of extreme metal. You'd be surprised how many you find outside of metal, actually, who you would have thought were posers, but they're actually very tough people. But yeah, it's kind of like, I think we all ought to just put the focus on ourselves ultimately, and just work on ourselves as much as we can, and try and add to the community that we're a part of, instead of just shitting all over it.
To add something on your own, actually bring something to the community and the scene, Try to bring something, at least your own sound. Some people might like it, some people might not, but at least you're bringing your own sound. You're not trying to fit in the thing. That's not the idea. That's wrong. Trying to fit in one thing, it doesn't go well with the entire thing.
Yeah, because ultimately it's a conformist idea, which is fucking bullshit.
Indeed.
That's just incompatible with this genre. So it's like, if that's what you wanted to do, then
I remember John saying, man, if we have to do Storm number 2, I quit right now.
Cool.
I don't want to do it. I quit. And he wanted to always, push the thing, evolve. It's comfortable. There would have been the easy choice to do Storm number 2, for sure. Everybody knew that. Even John, he knew that, for sure. But he didn't want that. He wanted to take Dissection to the next level, and that's what he did.
Absolutely. No, I do see Reinkaos as, I do, despite some of the feedback, I do very much see Reinkaos as the pinnacle of that band and his sort of artistic legacy. No question.
It's a sound that you may not like. Some people don't like it, and I understand that. But at least it's authentic and it's honest. And it's brave to do that. It's a lot braver to do that than to try to fit in a fucking jar.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry to say it that way, but that's what I think.
What I really like about it, and I've said this before, but one thing that I think is quite admirable about it is that it is, one thing that it actually kind of irks me when people say, oh, it sounds like Swedish death metal, melodic death metal with the Gothenburg sound, and it sounds like In Flames. That pisses me off, because I'm like...
No, I don't know.
What makes that record special is that you could clearly tell it wasn't influenced by any other bands, like, period. It's the fact that it was something that he nurtured in his head, but in probably less than desirable conditions over a period of 7-8 years. And and it's, you gotta respect that and actually listen to it for what it is. You can't it's an album that cannot be compared to any other album, as far as I'm concerned.
And that's the way it should be.
Sure.
That's the spirit of the 90s, man. All the way. Fenris, that's what he thinks. That's what he likes. That kind of... he might not like the album, I'm taking him as an example, but because, he's kind of the person that represents that the best, I think. The kind of don't give a shit and I do what I want. And that's the spirit. Freedom, man. You're free.
Fuck
and you may have some haters that will just spit on the shit, and who gives a shit? And it was braver, I think. I mean, when you get up at the morning, you feel good with what you did, and that's what matters as well, not what other people want you to do. That's not the spirit.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've all learned one lesson from this podcast, and it's been to, be authentic, right?
For sure. Oh, for sure.
Amazing. Brice, sir, thank you so much for coming on Iblis Manifestations, man. Thank you for reaching out.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's been really nice talking to you, man. And you seem like a very nice guy, and it's cool to obviously get to hear more of your perspective, especially going from those eras and stuff. And it's stuff that you always kind of wonder. So I feel privileged that I get to hear that perspective just from this podcast. So thank you for sharing that with us, and all the best to you with the upcoming record as well, man. Yeah,
you too, man. I'm looking forward for the album. And your cover on the Rebirth thing was giant, man. It was really well done, really, and I know the shit. So yeah, very well done. I left you a comment, by the way.
You did. I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you, man. It's I don't do things half-assed. I either don't do something, or if I do it, I do 110%. So I decided to record an hour and a half long guitar cover of one of my favorite records. So there we go.
Well done, very well done. You nailed it.
I appreciate it, brother. Thank you for the kind words. And Brice, just as a little bit of a plug at the end here, where can people check out what you're doing at the moment? What can they keep an eye out on?
On YouTube, on all the digital platforms. You can find me on Spotify. You can find me on Bandcamp. You can find me on YouTube, a little everywhere. I'm planning to release CDs and vinyls as well in the near future, or step by step. But and a little merch. I mean, I'm gonna have some shirts as well in the making at some point. So that's the plan so far.
Amazing, sir. Well, best of luck and best wishes for that project.
Thank you.
Thank you. And to everyone else listening to the podcast, hope you guys enjoyed this one. We'll see you on the next episode. Bye-bye.
Bye.